Alright, hello everyone, it is silverkyle, and today I'm going to be going over everything that I tried to finish within the months of January, February, and March of 2020. So quarter one of 2020, I set out a bunch of things in my backlog that I wanted to finish reading, or beat in terms of video games, or watch in terms of a movie. And this is what I've completed, and this is what I didn't get to complete yet. So obviously, I still have way more things in the non-complete pile, but I'm still happy with what I did accomplish. Well, I think I could have accomplished more. I don't know exactly what happened, but this did give me a better idea for what I'm going to be included in the months for quarter two of April, May, and June of 2020. All right, so let's go with what I actually did get to finish. The Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening. I really enjoyed my time with this. The only negatives that I had about this was when I get lost. I had no idea where to go, and so I used like a walkthrough because I would get lost, and I've never really played this game. This is my first time really ever playing it. I did play The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening DX on the Game Boy Color that my brother had, but I never got really far. I probably played like half an hour to an hour of it. So this was my really a time that I actually went through the entire game. It took me about 10 to 12 hours or something like that. And I very much enjoyed it. I just wish that it was a little bit more, not, I wouldn't say linear, but like that they would give me better clues of where to go. Because sometimes I probably would not have been able to figure that out. And I understand that that's how kind of video games were back then. But I like it so much more when there's a straighter line of this is, get from point A to point B. Now how you get from point A to point B can be completely different. But I just need to know that B is my destination. Because sometimes I have no idea where to go. But regardless, I still very much enjoyed my time with this, and I would love for them to make a what is it? Link to the Past from the SNES version of Legend of Zelda. I would love if they remade it in this vein, because I've heard so many good things about that game, and that game I don't think I've ever played that one. Like not even for 5 minutes. I don't think I have. Next up, I read A Stranger in the House by Sherry Lapina. At the beginning, I was kind of unsure of, or I liked the book, and then halfway through, I was kind of like, I don't know how I feel about this, and then near the end, I started liking it a little bit more. The only weird thing about this is that I've read 3 books from her now, and she involves cheating in all of her books, and I don't know if she was cheated on, but it just feels like she puts that in everything, and I can understand it in 1 or 2 of her books, but in 3, she's had 4 books, so I still need to have 1 more book that I need to read from her. But it just seems as though she thinks everybody cheats, and that just seems really weird to me. Like, it can work as a, and I guess when you're dealing with murders, that's a good reason, or not a good reason, but like that's usually what tends to happen. Is it's usually the wife or the husband or something like that. And these books, the thing though, is that you never really know who killed it, who killed who, until you get at the very end, and then it's like revealed, and the twists, like at the beginning of this one specifically, I was thinking I know who the murderer is right off the bat. Like they were making it seem so obvious, but then you start reading a little bit more, and you're like, oh, maybe not. It's not my favorite book from her. My favorite one would be, can't remember what it's called, but the one that they're all stuck in this like motel during a blizzard. That's what made me fall in love with her writing and her style of writing. I still think she's a fantastic author. I really enjoy the way that she writes things, especially to set the mood. But she keeps going under this thing that people cheat, and it's just strange. Anyway, next up, I watched All the President's Men. And this is the story about Watergate and the 2 reporters that are kind of trying to figure out, get to the bottom of Watergate, based on the actual true events of Watergate. And I enjoyed this. I really do like Robert Redford and Dustin Hoffman. And I watched Zodiac, and I tried to years ago, and I wanted to find more movies like that. And this was one of the recommendations. And I was like, oh, it's about a scandal, a real life scandal, and it's about reporters digging in and trying to find out as much information as they can. I would probably give it a 7 out of 10. I did very much enjoy it, but I kind of was expecting just a little bit more out of it. So, still a good watch. Next up is Savage Avengers, the trade paperback. And this is volume 1, which includes Savage Avengers number 1 to 5. I did a review of this actually on my channel. That's the first time I've ever done, I think, a review for any comic book. because I just felt that I really wanted to talk about it. And I very much enjoyed this. I cannot wait for the second installment. I don't know if the second installment is already out yet, or if not, it will be coming out soon. But I'm very much looking forward to that because I very much enjoyed my time with this. So much so that I'm actually, I think, going to start getting Conan the Barbarian. Although I think I want more Conan the current stuff of Conan the Barbarian, like where he looks like this, like he just looks so much more badass. So that's kind of what I would prefer. But I've heard so many good things about his old stuff, like the original Marvel years. I could maybe get the omnibuses of that as well, but I'm getting so many omnibus already. Next up is an actual omnibus, which was the first omnibus that I ever got, which is the Fantastic Four. And I really enjoyed my time with this. I probably will do a review of it. But I love Jack Kirby. Jack Kirby is... I didn't care for him for the longest time. I did not understand why people loved Jack Kirby's art. But over time, it started to grow on me. And I ended up starting to like the blocky kind of way that he draws. And then when you find out that he was working on just so many different comic books at the time, but still keeping the amount of talent that he still... and effort that he put into his... everything still looks the same. It doesn't look like he's trying to fly through anything. It all looks... especially when he goes into like outer space or in Atlantis or something like that, where you see all these fantastic ideas that he would create, and you see the background of what these civilizations would look like the buildings or the tech that they would be using. It's just so out of this world, and I love that, and I love the detail that he would put into these. So I became a Jack Kirby fan because of this. After a while, after the first few comics, I was like, yeah, but then after I started, maybe by the 10th issue, I really started to get behind it. I think that this is a great introduction of what Marvel would eventually become. By reading this, because this is what it all started with, essentially, like the big boom of Marvel anyway. You could obviously read the stuff that they started, I think, in the either early 40s or late 30s, when they were called something else. I can't remember off the top of my head anymore. But I enjoyed some of the... I'll talk about this in another review and go into a little bit more detail, but I enjoyed my time with it. Still not the greatest, though. Because it's very wordy, and it's very 1960s-ish, and it's very... a little bit too cartoony in some aspects. It's not as real as the comics that we read nowadays. And the last one that I finished was the Attack on Titan Colossal Edition Volume 1. Loved this. This is essentially, I think, Season 1 of Attack on Titan, if you've watched the TV show. I've actually stayed away from the TV show because I want to finish reading everything, and then I'm going to start rewatching the TV show. I've seen Season 1 or most of Season 1, and I very much enjoyed it, but I want to read it before I dive into the actual anime. I have Volume 2 set up, so I will be reading Volume 2 hopefully soon, probably in Quarter 2 that I'll be doing a video for soon. Then I've got a bunch of games that I just haven't played a lot of. I played a little bit of Pokemon Sword. It didn't grip me as much as I thought it would. I have not gotten back into Fire Emblem because I know that once I start playing that, it's just going to consume my life. It's so weird because I want to play that game probably so much more than almost anything else because I know I'm going to love it and get addicted to it, but I'm afraid of how addicted I'm going to get to it. So, Crash Team Racing, I played a little bit online, but I didn't play any of the single player, and that's what I wanted to do was try the single player. And Star Wars Fallen Order, or Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, I haven't even started either. So we're going to see if I actually continue those into the next one. I probably will pick some of them, but I'm not sure which ones yet. Next up, I don't think I read any of the Servant of the Shard book, but I do want to get back into this specifically next quarter. Same thing, I was in a big Hardy... Well, I read 2 Hardy Boys books. And then I just kind of stopped with this one. I read a little bit, like the first few chapters, and it was just like, it doesn't feel the same, and I don't have the craving anymore. I think that if this was like the 70s and 80s, stuff that I was reading as a kid, I would be definitely a lot more into it, but this old style, like these books are so old. Like they kind of revamped the stories, I think, at some point. Like, when was this first? 1927, and I think that they might have revamped it in 1955 or something like that, where they kind of tried to make it a little bit more modern, but 1927 is where the original story came from, and then they did revamp it, so the original books aren't necessarily the exact same, but it's still very old and very hard to get through at some points. It's kind of like the Fantastic Four. Like, I like a lot of the concepts, but a lot of them are outdated. And I didn't start at all The Nanny. I do still want to try that out. And then I did read a little bit more of the Avengers versus Thanos. But this is so hard to read. This is because it's all most of it is Captain Marvel. Like, they had the introduction with the Invincible Iron Man number 55, where you get. I think Thanos is in this one, or is it just? I can't remember if it's Thanos or just Drax the Destroyer. It might just be Drax the Destroyer. No, Thanos is. That's his dad, is it not? Yeah, okay, Thanos is in here. Yeah, Thanos is here. And then after that, it goes to Captain Marvel, the male Captain Marvel. And the male Captain Marvel is just not interesting to me. Like, well, from what I've read anyway. Maybe if you get attached to him at the very beginning, like with issue 1 to 5 or something, then you would start liking him. But I don't really care for him. So it's very hard for me to read any of this. And who is it? Who writes this? It is Jim Starlin. And I generally like Jim Starlin. That's odd. But anyway, yeah, I'm trying to get through that. And then I did, once the Infinity Gauntlet Omnibus was announced, that they were doing a reprint of it, it kind of made me slow down, because I knew that then I'm not going to read Infinity Gauntlet because I can read it in oversized. I've already read Infinity Gauntlet. I've already read this before, but I wanted to reread it. And I can't remember if Infinity Gauntlet Aftermath is included in that omnibus. If it is, that's awesome, but I know that some of the Silver Surfer is, so I don't know, how much of this I actually have to read. I still want to finish this, unfortunately. And then I'll get the Infinity Gauntlet omnibus, and I'll see which one of these I have to read. I know I won't have to read Infinity Gauntlet. I think the Aftermath is included in there, but I'm not 100% certain. And I know some of the Silver Surfer is as well, but I never compared them. So there you have it for Q1 of 2020, what I completed and what I didn't. What I didn't. Wait, that's the wrong pile. I completed this stuff. Why do I do this? There. That doesn't look great. There, much better. So, we'll see if any of this will get transferred into Q2. I can guarantee some of it will, and some of it won't. So, anyway, thank you all for watching. I hope you're all staying safe, and have yourselves a good weekend. It's a long weekend for me. Beardage.